Chris, we are live. Welcome to the show.
Hello, all. Thank you for the invite, Jeremy.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. And I just want to, formally apologize. I feel like I've bugged you so many times over the years. I'm just like, hey, we have all this conservative buyer data. I'm like, let's do something with it. And I'm like, Chris, you're like the one guy. I'm like, if anybody can figure it out, it's Chris. And I still stick to that. We have so much conservative buyer data and we're looking for good partners. So if you have any ideas, maybe it's your financial offer network. I don't know. But anyway, thank you for bearing with my attack on you for that.
Happy to help. Am I going to see you at Traffic and Conversion?
I will be at Traffic and Conversions. And I think we're going to host a little like founders happy hour. And I'm going to invite some other like personal friends and stuff. So I'll keep you posted on that if you want to just join and hang with us.
I'd love to go. Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
So it's been a while. We haven't seen each other before like the whole world shut down. So, and we're going to do our best. I'm doing my very best in life and on this show to not say the C word. So I just want to like have positivity, right? Because it's just so stressful. But it's been a while since I've seen you, probably a year and a half plus. What's been going on in your life, man? I mean, I will say, and I don't beat around the bush with this stuff. You know, I'm 31 now. I look at you and I'm like, I want to be doing more of what Chris is doing. You know, I like getting involved in deals and structuring the deals. Like that's like a more experienced, seasoned, successful version of me. So I respect that about you. But what have you been up to the last, year plus?
Thank you, brother. I think for a lot of people, the last year and a half has been an opportunity of either two things, like being completely lost or, my gosh, now that I'm not traveling and doing all this stuff, I can really focus. And for me, I fell in that latter group. So the focus allowed me to really expand all businesses that I was involved in, help other companies who were experiencing that same focus opportunity to grow their businesses. And it's looked like everything from starting some new businesses, upping the price that I charge for services, and helping a couple of companies get ready for exit and things like that. So it's been a productive time. As a matter of fact, I getting back into travel a little bit now with TNC, and then the rest of the year is kind of busy. And I used to thrive on that. And now I'm like, damn, it's such a distraction. So, but things are good. Things have been good. It was a blessing.
I know you were involved in like Roland with his Epic launch and everything like that. How's that going? I mean, I'd love to just dive right into that, right? Because I think that's a really cool process. And for those that don't know, Chris was involved with Roland Frazier and an online training that taught people how to purchase businesses with essentially no cash, right? Or no cash down, right? Can you dive into that?
Yes.
Like that is so appealing to any entrepreneur.
Yeah. So it kind of started when, and I'll give you the backstory and bring you up to speed. So when things got weird for everybody and things got shut down, I started calling out to all my friends who were founders, CEOs, thought leaders in their industries and said, what does this mean? Where's the opportunity here? Should I be scared? And one of those calls was with Roland Frazier. And if you don't know who Roland is, look him up. He's very generous with his content contributions across channels, smart guy. And he said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. And so it was on that call that the genesis of this program that's called Epic was born. And he said, hey, if I do it, will you help me? I was like, sure. So EPIC stands for Ethical Profits in Crisis. And the intention was to be able to train an army of entrepreneurs who understood deal structure and an M&A capacity so that they could go out and instead of some business owners saying, I just got to shut it down, I got to, giving troubled business owners an option other than just closing up shop. So the idea was we train a bunch of entrepreneurs to know how to go do this, to find the troubled buyer or troubled sellers and give them a fair deal that they wouldn't get otherwise. So we started in April of 2020 was the first cadre. We're starting cohort 16 now. So the program's still going on. It's thriving. this point, I think we've trained about 2,000 plus entrepreneurs in this concept of acquisition entrepreneurship. So there's a book out there by a guy named Walker Daigle called Buy, Then Build. And the idea is that, you know this, other listeners are going to know this, startups are hard. You start from scratch, got this idea, that sucks. It's easier to take a business that's already gotten through that phase, but it's stuck. It's easier to take that and go to the next level than it is to start from scratch and get to, like, from 0 to 1 is hard. From 1 and up, easy. So we're teaching them that instead of going to start a business, go find somebody who is interested in an exit, interested in investment, for whatever reasons. Now, the strategies that we teach, the deal structure stuff, it works regardless of, I can bring this to Wall Street, I can bring it to LA hedge funds, it doesn't matter. The framework of deal structure that we teach and how to be a creative deal structurer, that's effective. And it's been pretty incredible to see people who, because I think a lot of us, if you're not involved in acquisitions, you're not involved in M&A, if you're at a cocktail party and there's a bunch of business people around, you're like, what do you do? Real estate investing. What do you do? I'm on the internet. The person that says they're like in mergers and acquisitions, everybody's like, they just assume, oh, that guy's smart, right? Because it's almost like an apex or definitely leveling up for where the perception is, at least for a lot of us. You're a successful businessman, I'm a successful businessman. But we still, because it's not something that is part of our normal business practices, we just assume, oh, wow, like it's hard. It's for the elite and that sort of thing. So we've trained these people to really become the apex predator of the business world. And I don't mean predator necessarily in a negative way, because again, what we teach them is how to use this to find businesses that are in distress and give those businesses options. But it's a fantastic model. I think at this point, I've probably assisted 150 deals in the past year through entrepreneurs, advising them on deal, like how to get into the deal without not necessarily putting themselves at risk. So Jeremy, you mentioned that, hey, it's a way to buy businesses without, putting money down. Well, Roland likes to call it no money out of pocket. So money may come down, but it may not be your money, right? Like we teach ways to leverage the existing assets of the business for financing. We teach ways to go out and find investors who are passive or active, depending on what you need, that will give you the money. We teach you strategies for negotiating what Roland calls a DDP, a deferred down payment, right? Which is essentially no down payment at all, but because the language that's used and how that might work is, well, Chris, why would we want to have a deferred down payment? Well, I want to get control of some assets, leverage those assets for growth, and then take the down payment, pay the down payment out of the growth that was achieved with the existing business, not put myself at risk by taking my wallet out. We briefly, I know I spoke to Max a little bit about this, but you guys had some opportunities. I think you put an email out to your list, just curious, hey, does anybody interested in investing with us or anything like that? And you got some responses. So I think it's a missing piece for a lot of entrepreneurs' business strategies, because growth through acquisition is so much easier than being on the grind.
Yeah, and I agree completely with a couple things you said. First off, that you're just like at an upper echelon. Like, I know you're smart, but I just assume you're smarter just because you're in mergers and acquisitions. And I just assume, like, if someone drives one of those new Lamborghini SUVs, I assume they have like a level of success. When somebody says they're in mergers and acquisitions, I assume a similar level of success. There's just something like, I don't know if you can be poor and be in mergers and acquisitions at the same time. Those words don't correlate to me. Yeah. So how do you, I love that. And I agree, by the way, Founders Mastermind, we started from scratch, and I told everybody, I was like, this is the last business I'm starting from scratch in a really, really long time. Because we had to, even basic stuff, create the agreements, customer avatar, the applications, the sales process, the pricing structure, all that stuff, right? When it's like, it would have been so great to just start at 90 and go to 100 rather than 0 to 100 like we just did. So I agree completely. How are you locating these? Because obviously 2020 was probably a unique time and there's probably a lot of good opportunity to be had, but I think there's going to be inevitably opportunity. I'm sure these strategies will be effective for eternity as long as humans are doing business and capitalism is a thing. How are you locating these underperforming assets to potentially acquire?
Great question. You just let people know. Okay, well, how do you let people know? The standard approach that I encourage new entrepreneurs to is look, get on LinkedIn, post on LinkedIn, say, hey, I'm looking for investment. I'm looking to invest or acquire businesses in, and then you get very clear on the ideal acquisition profile. What's the industry? What's the size of the business? Size as far as like the team as well as revenue. Does it need to be located in, Tampa? So once you get clear on what you want from a business acquisition, you just start posting. And I'm not saying blow it up. I'm saying like let your warm market know that you're interested in investing or acquiring a business that's, a automobile service shop in Tampa that's doing $2 million or less per year. And here's what happens. I heard this a long time ago from Napoleon Hill. I think it was Napoleon Hill. It said, once you get clear on what you want, unseen forces will come to your aid. Now, he didn't mean, like gremlins coming to your aid. What he meant was that if you let the world know what you're looking for, 2 months from now, somebody might say, hey, you know what? I know a guy that's looking for that. Like by letting the world know that you're looking for that automotive dealership or automotive repair shop in Tampa that's doing $2 million or less, the more people you let know, the more when that comes up, somebody's going to say, hey, I know a guy. My girlfriend, she's buying businesses or whatever. So you start there and you get in LinkedIn, Facebook, add it to the signature line of your email so that when it goes out, it just says, hey, know anybody interested in investment or selling their business and blah, blah, blah. Contact me. So it's just like anything. You have to plant the seed, right? And time, there's that saying about the best time to plant the tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now, right? So the time is going to pass regardless. You might as well be planting the seeds in the meantime. And eventually, pretty quickly, within, I would say, 3 to 6 months, most of the entrepreneurs that are doing this, deal flow is not an issue. They've got they've got plenty of deals coming their way. And I'll tell you, just knowing how to do that is a valuable service. In this world of acquisition entrepreneurship, you start to realize that the big boys and girls, the venture capital and the private equity funds, they pay 6 figures per month to generate deal flow. They have to hire people going out there to beat the bushes and stuff like that. So if you can generate deal flow, that's a very valuable skill. And here's how I've leveraged that, and others that I've taught have leveraged that. Once we get deal flow in a certain area, you can go, and Roland teaches all this stuff in his Epic program, but you can go to Google and type in, acquisitions in the automotive, repair shop business. And any news story from a business journal or from the businesses themselves will say, hey, congratulate us. We just acquired a new business. So it's very easy to find out who's buying in that vertical or that niche. And then you just call them up and say, you talk to the business development or the M&A team or whatever. Once you get connected, you say, hey guys, I'm also investing in this space. I have a lot of deal flow. Not all of those deals work for me. Would you be interested in me sending some of those your way? And they're going to say, hell yes. And then you do this. Okay, great. So I don't waste your time. Tell me what you're looking for. And they're going to give you a shopping list. Now, as an acquisition entrepreneur, you can go and find specifically those types of deals, knowing that you can negotiate for ownership interest or an option and then flip it to the big guys. That's one of the ways that we do this. But once the deal flow starts coming in, one of the biggest challenges that I have is new people are like, I'm going to reach out to 100 businesses a week. That's a lot, man. How many deals a month can you handle? Right? The reality is you don't need that much deal flow in order to be successful at this or to start having conversations with business owners. And one of the biggest challenges, a caveat for all of you that are thinking about exploring this, what happens is they'll get oh my gosh, it works. Somebody called me. automotive repair shop in Tampa called me and they want to sell. And as a new investor, you fall in love with that deal. Even if it's not a good deal, you don't have deal flow. So you're just trying to make it work, which results in mistakes. How do you keep that from happening? Know what you want and have plenty of deal flow coming in. Because at that point, it gets very easy to say, yeah, it just doesn't fit. Thank you. See ya. Bye. I'm kind of going all over the place here, but I've had this conversation with enough.
This is helpful. So I understand. So like, let's just say your target is businesses in the $1 million or $2 million range, and you go to them to potentially do a deal, no cash out of pocket. Is it saying, hey, I'm going to earn equity if these results are hit? Is that like, hey, like based on performance, or like how do you, because I imagine you mentioned $2 million auto shop. I imagine it's a sole proprietor, family owned shop. Like they're just not going to hand over equity. But if it's like, hey, I can help you reach the glory land, and if I do that, then this is what's going to happen? Or how are those at a high level, kind of like those conversations at?
So there's a number of ways you can do that. And here's what I tell every entrepreneur that's getting into this. There's no right way, and there's no wrong way. If it works for you, say yes. If it doesn't work for you, say no. Well, what if they say this? Well, does that work for you? No. Well, then let them know that we can't do the deal that way. So first and foremost, it's whatever you can think of. But here's the types of deals that I like a lot. Equity is not necessarily what I'm going for. What I'm going for is cash flow, because with that cash, I can invest in things that I've already got in motion, right? So if I need to, or I get a lot of opportunities that aren't necessarily the result of me actively going out, they're coming to me. So a perfect example in the digital space is I will find a business that I know that for whatever reason, they don't have the right resources, they don't have good connections, they don't have good business development, they don't have good leadership. The business is a mess because they're an entrepreneur trying to run a business. I'll give you a perfect example of one that happened recently. A friend of mine, I refer a lot of business to his marketing agents. Okay. Facebook shop out of the Caymans. And he said, hey, there's this guy you got to meet. He's one of my clients. And he's in an industry that I'm in. Started talking to the guy, and the guy wanted to grow his business. I said, I have Frank Kern released something at the beginning of last year called Sandor, Sandor. It was Frank defining how he evaluates the sales and marketing process to find opportunities. Brilliant. I do that on a business. So this guy came to me and said, hey, I want to grow my business. I ran a Sandor audit, and I found a number of areas that would be very easy to grow his business. And so I approached him and said, hey, listen, you're doing this now. I think that we could probably get you up to 3x that pretty quickly. Interested? Of course he's interested. How much is it going to cost me? Here's what I tell him. Nothing. You keep what you're making now, and we'll split anything above that. So I call that a baseline or a benchmark deal. You're doing a couple $100,000 a month, keep it. Now, I do need you as the business owner to pay for any, like if we need a creative or we need a copyright or whatever, that's going to come out of your side, but I'll architect the whole thing. I'll manage the team, and I will get the results. And when the results come in, that's when we can start splitting. Now, for me, I just go for the cash. Now, as an investor, I could say, I want cash. And if we hit either a temporal, like 6 months, or a monetary goal, then that's called an earn-in. I want, option for 10% of the company, 20% of the company, whatever. So there's ways that you can negotiate both cash. And the third thing would be, and while this is happening, I'm going to draw a retainer of $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, whatever it may be. So as an investor, while you're doing this, you can get cash today. You can create an environment where equitable distribution will occur once certain conditions are met, and you can get a big fat piece of the upside. My typical start with those deals is 50% of the increase. Okay. So you got a business that's doing a couple million. If you can get them to 5 million, and it's not that, this because you've been in that position, but going from $0 to 100,000 in sales is hard. Going from 2 million to 5 million is not hard, right? Once you've got the momentum, it's a function of infrastructure, traffic, and bandwidth, right? It's not that hard because you figured it out. So getting these guys, my sweet spot is taking a business from 7 figures to 8 figures. And ideally we do that in 12 to 18 months max. So all along the way, they're getting a win because for them, it's free money. Plus, there's no risk, really. They're getting to keep what they were making before I came on board. So that's one way to do it. It's a baseline or benchmark deal is what I'd call that. But there's certainly opportunities for you can go and just straight up ask, look, in order for me to get involved, I typically ask for blank % of ownership interest in the business. Now, some of you may be listening and say, well, equity transfer is a taxable event. Yes, we don't necessarily go for the equity distribution. We go for options, right, that we can exercise. Usually we'll exercise those upon exit or sale, right, or investment of the business if necessary. So we've got the ownership interest without having to trigger a taxable event today when no money has changed hands. So you can go for the equity. You can ask for it right away, or you can do that thing that I mentioned earlier, which is typically called an earn-in. If I do
equity
blank,
could get messy, especially if you don't know enough about the business owner. I mean, it could be a nightmare to grab equity. That's what I learned when we had our agency with Kevin. Like some of the deals, he couldn't wait to give them their equity back. So sometimes equity is not a good thing. So I like that.
So what I typically do is I don't take equity. I take options for that equity, but I will take distributions, right? And we just negotiate that. Well, you're not an owner. How do you get a distribution? You just call it whatever the hell you want, right? It doesn't have to be by the book. It's essentially saying, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to get 20% ownership interest in the company, and I'm going to get 20% of the revenue that we generate. So you don't have to necessarily do that, but talk to your attorney, talk to your tax guy, all that good stuff before you say, well, Daigle said I could do this. Obviously, you want to talk to some tax pros and that sort of thing. It's a lot easier than you think. I'll tell you, I get these calls from time to time with people in the program. They said, I was talking to somebody and they said, I'm glad you called. I was just going to walk away. Right. So what you and I said, well, how does somebody do that? Well, we don't have those life circumstances. But if Jeremy, if you went to the doctor and God forbid the doctor said, Jeremy, you don't have long, buddy. You've got about 6 months to live. How you spent that last 6 months probably wouldn't be scheduling podcasts and being on team meetings and right. So we find people who are motivated because of life situations. The business just isn't that interesting anymore. Whatever the reasons are, we're looking. The best deals, the most flexible, the most creative structures come from people who are motivated to sell. Well, my first grandkid just got born in Florida. I live in Oregon. I want to move closer to the grandkids. Therefore, I need to sell my fishing tour business or whatever. So that's what we're looking for. Is we're looking for people that because of a divorce or whatever, they're interested in getting out. Now, another thing, we don't buy the business. We control the assets. If I buy your entity and you were dumping, motor oil in the backyard the whole time, if I buy the entity and the entity owns that property, I'm the new owner, but yet I'm liable for things that occurred under the purview of that business. Now, the assets of the business, that's what the business is. It's intellectual property, physical assets, inventory, whatever. That's what I want. And this epic model, that's what we want to control. It's the old Rockefeller habits. It's like own nothing, control everything, right? Because if you are the owner of record, well, you're a target for a lawsuit. He's got assets. Let's sue him. You are, there's risk that's associated with ownership of an entity that doesn't exist with being able to deploy the assets of that entity strategically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I'm like hooked on this. This is my type of stuff. I think this is my calling in life, is doing deals like this, because this gets me excited. I'm just enjoying listening to you.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering if this is just a crazy, and we can maybe talk more about it in San Diego, but like, I'm wondering if there's like any way I can just be involved on a deal and I would help you with whatever you needed. Like, I wouldn't want any compensation or anything. I would just like love to like learn how you're doing this stuff. Like, I would just help you whatever way I could. And like, if we ended up wanting to do something comp related at some point, great, but I wouldn't even worry about comp. I'd just be like, I would just drop my ego and be like, Chris, how can I serve you with this and help you with some of these deals? Because I'm just like really okay. Go ahead.
Good. And what that idea looks like, and for any of you that are information marketers or you have a product or whatever, and you've got an audience, it's as simple as I mentioned earlier, letting people know. It's as simple as you guys sending out an email to maybe your paid list, free list, whatever, and saying, hey guys, we've had a great year. We're interested in investing or acquiring businesses that meet this criteria, ... If you were to send that out to your list, I guarantee that you would get some replies. And some people would say, hey, I'll bite. What does this look like? How do we work with you, right? And let's say maybe you got 10 responses. We only need really one of those to be somebody where it's like, I'm glad you guys sent this email. My wife and I are getting divorced or whatever the case might be. We need to sell the business. We're motivated to sell. Okay. That's where we'd start, because if I bring you in on a deal and it's not in an industry or a niche that you are familiar with, you can learn the mechanics. But what I always encourage new investors to do is, yeah, maybe you want to go own a hotel in the Caribbean. That's great. However, stick with what you know right now. Stick with the industry where you understand the unit economics. You understand the sales cycle. You understand the lexicon. You've got connections, right? Like, stay there while you're learning the M&A stuff. Because if you go into a new industry and you want to learn M&A, you've just increased the level of complexity and delayed the gratification that would come with a closing. Because now you have to learn a brand new industry and learn all this deal structure stuff simultaneously. So for you guys, I would say stick with what you know, find an agency or an e-commerce business or whatever the case might be. Do you think you could help the average e-commerce business owner? Do you think you could help them grow their business?
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, what I'm thinking, Chris, and I kind of see where you're going. We've built out a pretty good core team for our e-com stuff. And like, I think it'd be pretty seamless for us to integrate an acquisition with our core team of something in a similar vertical.
Yeah, very easy. And there's people out there that maybe they've gotten over the hump. They've gone from 0 to 1, right? You can take them to 10 pretty quick, because like we talked about, it's a function of infrastructure, bandwidth, all the things that you guys have already, you've done it in your own business, and you've helped tons of other businesses do it. So you know how to solve those problems quickly. What's that worth? Name it, right? 50% of the company? I don't know. But here's what I will tell you. The more ownership interest that you ask for, the more the seller or the existing owner will expect you to participate in the operation of that business. Me, I don't want to run your business for you. I don't want to raise your kids, right? So I usually focus on 20% or under if I am going for an ownership interest, because that's right at the threshold where I'm still an advisor, but I'm not a partner necessarily. 50-50, that's a partner, right? Like, if I'm getting up at 8 a.m. to go to work, you're getting up at 8. Like, that's the expectation that happens in those dynamics. So that would be one bit of advice. But Roland shared this concept with the War Room group recently, and he called it a no-raise private equity fund. And essentially, what you would do is you would have ownership interest in a number of these people. Let's say you sent that email out and you got 5 businesses that were a good fit for you guys. We could work out a deal where you got ownership interest and comp in exchange for helping them grow. At that point, essentially, you've done the same thing that a private equity firm would do, but instead of putting cash out to buy all or some of these businesses, you've used the infrastructure that you've already built. You've used the expertise that you've learned from evaluating all these businesses and that sort of thing. So it's an investment, but it's not a capital investment. And if you think about it, it's really a shortcut, because if I give you capital for you to deploy in your business as you see fit, you're going to buy marketing, you're going to hire some people, stuff like that. Why don't we just skip out the money stage, make it a lot easier? We've got those people. Oh, you need somebody that can do, widget production. We've got 5 widget guys. You need somebody that can, do the doodads. We've got 3 doodad people. So you bring those to a business, and that commands like the equivalent equity of a cash, like a capital infusion. So you guys could do it with no money. It's no money out of pocket. Well, Chris, I'm still paying for the staff that's going to be, but you're not having to put $250,000 down to get 20% ownership interest in the business. So I think for you guys, and if you like doing deals, Jeremy, that should be part of your business. And I think very quickly, within, I would imagine 24 to 36 months, what you're doing now would be a side business. With you guys, because you're not scared of big numbers and that sort of thing, there would be no limit. Right? Like your ownership might be in big companies.
Yeah, no, that you're really making my head, spin a little, because we've really started to make the pivot on I'm involved in some e-com stuff. We have our mastermind, and then we have our agency Unicorn, and I'd love to only be involved in these type of deals on the Unicorn side, because we've helped grow so many business. Like On It was one of our clients, and they just sold to Unilever, and like we drove a lot of traffic, and we earned some good income off it, but we were not an equity owner, right? So I think just from a motivation standpoint, it's just like, I don't think we have a choice. I think we have to like do deals like this to continue to want to really be vested in these companies. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, at this point in your the learning curve for you need to be doing less doing and more thinking, right? You, with your understanding of stuff, if you're busy, you can't do deep thought on problem solving, right? So what you'll find is if you do get in this situation and you are spending more time on deals, a lot of your time will be unstructured time. So there's this concept of a maker's schedule and a manager's schedule. It came out of Silicon Valley a long time ago. Managers are like, well, I've got a call at noon and at 12:30. There's all these things that have to be done. The makers don't have those schedules because their output is creative-based, thought-based, that sort of thing. So you'd find yourself in a tempo of day-to-day like life that is, it's awesome. If I didn't have kids, I wouldn't have to get up so early, but like I'm not accountable to team. I got a couple people on my team. That's it. Everything else I use is modular. I need an agency, boom. I need a CMO, let's get a fractional guy. I need a . So I'm able to architect the growth framework, plug the people in, and then I back up. And the operators, the ones with the other 80% ownership in the business, maybe there might be like a weekly call that we check in. Hey guys, how's it going? But they're not hour-long firefighting call. I don't fight fires. They do, right? They call me when they got a big fire, and I'm like, hold on, I got a guy. Call Jeremy at Unicorn, right? Whatever the thing might be. So, and that dude, that was sure, the money's great. Absolutely. However, the freedom that came with transitioning from an operator into look at cash flow quadrant. I went from B to I, right? And the contribution that I can make now is so much greater because people don't want me because I can type fast. They want me because like you, I've seen a lot of scenarios and been like, oh, we don't want to try that because these guys did it or whatever, right? So I'm in a situation where most of the time the conversation might be like, okay, give me a day. Let's talk tomorrow. I'll come up with some answers. Then I can go walk the dog. I can go pick the kids up early from school. But while I'm driving, I'm thinking about that solution. While I'm walking the dog, I'm like, right? And that deep thought is where the real leverage comes from, not from being a grinder, right? That's not where leverage comes from.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I agree with that completely. And that's really been the transition I've been on the last few years. I'm pretty close to that. Awesome. I'm probably a little bit of S at this point because it's ES, BI. It's like BI. Employee, self-employed, BI. I'm like a third probably in S, B, and I. Yeah. But I really want to be like mostly B and I, and then ultimately 100% in I, right? For those that don't know what you were talking about, the quadrant, which is great. There's employee, E, there's self-employed, S, and that's on the left side of the quadrant. That means you're basically trading time for money. And then there's B and I, business owner and investor on the right, and that means you're leveraging either team assets for B for cash flow, or for I, you're just leveraging cash for cash. So the right side of the quadrant is the place to be, and that's where wealth is built. Yeah, with rare exceptions like NBA players. But Yeah, I like that a lot. So I guess back to what you were mentioning, are you proposing like we look for these deals and then you come in and like help structure and get a piece of it? Is that kind of where you were going with that?
Yep. I think that
Okay.
you guys are sitting on, there's deal flow in your ecosystem. And because there's not a mechanism in place to extract the motivated sellers from your list for those conversations, those people, you're doing a disservice to your audience. Because there's some business owners out there that would be like, if I could partner with Jeremy, oh my gosh, what would that do? Like, there's people that would they would beg to work with you, right? But if you don't have the systems in place or the procedures in place to work with these people, it can be a bit of a shit show. But if you understand, okay, we're going to take these people in, and hey, Mr. Business Owner, Mrs. Business Owner, here's what we do. We do that. And it's clear to both parties that Jeremy's team is going to be providing these things. The operators will do these things. Then at that point, it's especially if it's a situation where you can arbitrage your employees into ownership interest. Well, Jeremy, we don't have enough people. Got a good idea. Let's go hire a few more, right? Because most of the skills that would be deployed, they're not people like you. They're people that are working for you, right? So it's commoditized skill set. You need more media buyers. You need more graphic designers. You need more whatever. They're out there. So if you figured out, and here's what I do. For most businesses, I have a specific profile that I look for. But I know that most businesses can benefit from some operational and organizational clarity. So I mentioned before we got on the thing, I mentioned EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's an operating system for businesses. That's a framework on how you can grow your business and leverage processes and systems rather than your time to do that. So Ryan and Richard and Ryan Dice, Richard Lindner, and Roland have a model called Scalable OS. Some of you may be familiar with Vern Harnish and his Scaling Up or Gazelles. So all of these things are operating systems. And what they're essentially saying is if you follow these steps and do these exercises, then you've built like a macro process for growing your business. So when I come in, it doesn't matter the size of the business, but when I come in, we will spend a couple of days with the owners and we'll go through a series of questions that helps us define where we're going, who we sell to, how soon do we want to get there, what do we need to get there. And high level, it looks like this. Jeremy, how big do we want the business to be? Wow, it'd be great if we get it to $100 million. Now, why is that question important? Because if there's a leadership team, you may be thinking 100 million, but your business partner might be thinking 20 million. If you've never talked about it, now watch what happens. You're reading and you're becoming the person that can create a $100 million business. Your partner is becoming a person that can create a 20. You're studying different things. You're having different conversations. You're thinking about different things. And that disconnect, if not identified, that's a big reason why partnerships don't work out, is because they're misaligned. Okay. So we get in and we make sure everybody is clear on where we're going. Okay, great. We set a $100 million target. How long is it going to take us to get there? You know, we want to, how soon? Can we do it in 5 years? I don't know. Let's figure that out. So part of the process is we evaluate what would have to happen for us to get to this number in this time. And then from there, once we've figured it out, well, we'd need to have, we'd probably need 30 more media buyers. We'd need this, we need that. So we do these, it's almost like the equivalent exercise of a vision board. We're thinking in advance of the challenges that we'll experience on the growth from where we are to where we're going, so that when they happen in the business, we thought about that already, right? It's not like, and a lot of us as we're growing businesses, what we might find is we hit a challenge and we're like, let me call my network and figure out how they're dealing with this. Yet if you would have planned in the framework that I'm suggesting, that we would have predicted about year 2 or 3, we're going to run into some problems that are related to cash flow or whatever. What are we going to do at that time? So that when it happens, we don't lose momentum. We got the playbook that we developed a couple years ago. Oh, okay. So, and then what we do is, okay, if we need to do that in 5 years, what has to happen in year 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, this quarter, this week? and we break it down to where everybody in the organization is clear on what they need to do this week that moves us towards that 5-year goal. What we need to do this quarter that moves us towards that 5-year goal. And once that level of clarity is achieved in the organization, there's a transition time. It's not a switch, it's a process. But once the team is on board and operating from that operating system, that framework, friction is removed. Like it's so easy. And here's what happens. Right now, you got employees or somebody on your team is like, it's 12:30. They're not back from lunch. Where are they? I don't want to worry about that stuff. If I'm measuring your performance, and we get really into the details of how do I know you're doing a good job, right? And it's all numbers driven. Doesn't mean that we've dehumanized business. It just means that it's numbers driven. If I say, hey, Jeremy, I need 100 widgets a week from your team in order to hit this goal. On Thursday of the week, if you're at 40 widgets, you don't need me on your ass. 100 is the target. I'm at 40. I need to do something, right? So I like those operating systems because of that, because I don't need to manage people. The numbers manage people, and we measure on a weekly basis, and everybody's clear on when that measurement occurs, who's going to be responsible for that number. So if we set targets, we're like, hey, we had 100 widgets. Jeremy, your team looks like they reported 40 last week. What's going on here? We don't jump your ass. We say, hey, what was the problem? You might say, well, we've got one distributor who can give us the materials that we need. Okay, guys, let's solve that. Let's get 3 distributors, right? So that next time, yeah.
What you're talking about sounds super useful. Is that part of the scalable system you're talking about, or where are all these like systems and everything coming from these questions?
They're all a little different. Yeah, they're all a little different. EOS is kind of one of the granddaddies. It's been around for, 20 years. The main book around that framework is called Traction, written by a guy named Gino Wickman. If you go to YouTube and type in EOS or Entrepreneurial Operating System, there's plenty of videos from professional implementers that are sharing, nuggets about different pieces of it. But what I do is I don't use exclusively EOS. I use some scaling up stuff. I use some OKR. If you're familiar with the book Measure What Matters by John Doerr, was a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley. OKRs are outputs and key results. So it's a different kind of way. With Vern Harnish, with scaling up, he talks about rocks, right? They talk about those in EOS as well. In OKRs, it's outcomes and key results. So I use a little bit of Vern stuff, some OKR stuff, some scalable stuff from Ryan and Roland, and some EOS. So what I've done is I've created I call it the new way. So, because if it's not the new way, what is it? It's the old way. Who wants to do things the old way? Nobody. So that's what I call my framework.
I will say, and I want to talk about something you wrote down here, and I think this is a good segue. You seem very passionate about this, which is cool. And I could see myself getting passionate about this as well, because I would say I'm like an 8 out of 10 happy with everything I'm doing. Like, we have some cool projects going on, some good income earning potential, but there's maybe like that little bit of thing missing. And this, I don't know, like, this sounds really appealing to me. Seriously. Like, you may know, we don't have like a super, super close relationship, but we talked enough. Like, I'm a relationships and like deal flow guy. I like pushing deals along. Yep. I don't like getting involved in the day-to-day operation. So this seems right up my alley. So I'm really glad we're talking about this. I know you mentioned higher consciousness of something you want to talk about. And I have a suspicion that there's correlation between these two. What does higher consciousness mean to you?
That's a great question. I guess the Tao which can be named is not the true Tao. That's what they would say. But I believe that I don't know that I'm like a strict game or simulation theory believer or anything like that, but I believe the scientific side of things. And Dr. Joe Dispenza is very good at explaining the metaphysical through science. Okay. So I got turned on to Dr. Joe. That was very helpful. I started meditating consistently at the beginning of this year. And dude, that was transformative. If those who are listening say, oh, I've tried it, I can't do it. Dude, you can't sit still. Anybody can do that, right? So I practice transcendental meditation, TM. You can go learn TM in any city in the country. There's people that'll teach you TM. So that combined with, and then exploration with the assistance of, I don't know what you'd call it, shamanic guides, I guess I would say. So there's a number of ingredients to the pursuit for higher consciousness. But for me, it's this time on this planet is finite. But me, the thing that's making me tick, I don't believe that's finite. It's energy. In physics, I'll tell you, energy can't be destroyed, right? So in an open forum, I can only say so much, I think, before I might scare some people off. Not scare them off, but have them go, this guy's a cuckoo. But I can tell you that that was a really big key to a transformation that occurred in my life, was the pursuit of more than just the paper chase, right? More than just, there's always a bigger boat, right? And I don't care if you're a Saudi prince. There's a Russian oligarch that's got a bigger boat than you do, right? So competing on that material level is very frustrating. And there's a book called The Five Rings, and it's a samurai guide to warfare, right? One of the things that they talk about in there is that everything that you need, it's not outside, it's in you, right? There's nothing outside that will make you better than, or happier, or whatever. Like, it's that you seek is already here kind of vibe. So just understanding that and not trying to, dude, I don't want to compete with how much you've spent on your car. I think that's stupid. I don't want to, my watch might be 20,000, yours is 100,000. I don't care how much money you've got. That extra 80 grand, you could have had impact on a number of people. You could have invested. Just different philosophies. But for me, higher consciousness is not exclusive from making money. I think that higher consciousness allows you to attract more, because it's not just the money. Because if you think about it, if I give you a bunch of money, you're going to go buy shit. What if that shit was just in your lap now? You don't need the money. So most of the things that I seek, I guess they come to me. So, and I don't have to have money to give them.
And I don't.
Deep topic, brother.
Yeah, no, and that's what I look for, right? I don't necessarily think you're cuckoo because, and I'll tell you why. And I think any person that completely relies on Western or Eastern medicine, like, there's somewhere in the middle for health and happiness, and we saw this in the last 18 months, right? Like, I don't think, I could argue it's more crazy to rely completely on Western medicine than Eastern medicine, because there's a profit narrative in the Western portion of it, right? Whereas the Eastern side is a lot about feeling. And even if some of it is, what's the word I'm looking for? Where it, have you seen the documentary Heal with Joe Dispenza's in it?
I haven't.
It's on Amazon Prime.
As compared to
it talks about how they believe, and Joe Dispenza is one of the main people in this documentary. It's like, definitely watch that ASAP. It's a few years old.
Yeah,
ironically, the irony is, I think it's like 2018. The whole front of the documentary is how the media scares us with like all these viruses. This was before COVID. So it's like really crazy, but how that stress is so bad for our immune system, and how suppressed emotion and stress outside of diet, which is the other huge one that people are getting a little bit more aware to, maybe not as much as we should, but a little bit more aware. But suppressed and stressed emotion, or suppressed emotion and stress, are what they believe is like directly linked to cancer. And they feel that that's why there's really not a super effective cure for cancer, because as long as your body is in this stressed mode, it's in fight or flight. And as long as you're in that fight or flight protective mode, your body can't heal. And that's why I I don't think you're cuckoo at all. I mean, I respect people that are like deep within themselves. And some of the people that I call mentors and people that I think are the happiest have that combination of, yeah, they're financially successful. Yeah, they figured out that part of life, because you got to be honest, and wealth is important. We can't just be like, money doesn't matter. It's like, yeah, wealth is very important, but also it's not the only important thing. So I think that's great. And that's a journey that, I'm 31 now. It's a journey that I've been, on myself to try to find what feels best for me. So I respect that. That's where you're at.
And it gives you more to aspire to than just more money in the bank, right? Like it gives you, I don't know. We're entrepreneurs. We like challenges and that sort of thing. Try keeping your cool when your flight's been delayed for 8 hours and that sort of thing. And those are things that if you are pursuing deeper consciousness, then you're not measuring things on the frequency that we typically do in business, which causes stress, right? Like, I can't, man, I'm so busy, dude. Maybe can we talk at 6 o'clock? Dude, I'm so busy. I can't talk to people until like the late at night. Like that's not a way to live for an extended period of time. That will cause distress. That will cause, hair loss or whatever.
People that say that stuff, I also feel like the people that say stuff like that, I also feel like are the least successful, most unhappy people I know. Like some of the people that I know are the happiest, wealthiest, like they're never the type that's, oh, I'm just so busy, we can talk in 2 weeks. Like, have you got one of those before? It's like, the first thing I can do is 2 Wednesdays from now at 3 o'clock. I'm like, what the actual fuck? Right.
I don't want to live that way. Right.
Yeah.
But here, oh, well, Chris, they make more money than you. Okay, good. What does that mean? Right. Like, but what are they doing with all that time? Like me, I'm walking my dog. I'm spending time with my kids, my wife, whatever, and they're not. So at some point, man, once today's cash flow needs are taken care of, unless you've got, like I've got clients and friends that have aspirations and have achieved some of them, the billionaires, right? But that's not most of us. What do you need $1 billion? Like, I'm not going to say it's not, I want to put the wrong words out into the universe, but I would submit that the average listener here, if they had 5 million in the bank, wouldn't be distressed. And if they had $1 billion in the bank, they might be, right? There is these aspirations that people go for that are monetarily based. I don't think, unless they've been around people that have achieved that, they understand the price that has to be paid to do that. The friends of mine that are on track to be billionaires, they're not like you and me. They're not interested in family. They're not, and I don't mean that they're like robots. They love what they do, but they're just wired differently. And they understand, and from a young age, most of them understood, if I want this, I will be sacrificing a lot, right? It almost becomes like the person that wants to be a gymnast at the Olympic level. They start when they're 6 years old and they give up a lot of stuff to be that degree of a performer. Same thing in the financial space, right? Like if you want to be a billionaire, it's like the Olympics of money. So you have to say no to a lot of things. You have to, and those things may be things that make life great. But I don't care about a gold medal. People that do, they're willing to make that sacrifice. So anyway, paper chase is a bad idea.
It comes down to what's important for you. And it's something I've actually been dealing with recently. I think I'm about to buy my first house and I've been battling my ego, and I'm just like, do I want to stretch and get more of the dream house, or do I need just, something that's nice and smaller that's perfect for me as a single guy? And it's just like the battle in my head, which is really crazy. And I had like called up a couple people that I'm close to, I consider as like mentors. I'm like, this isn't the house I want to like maybe post on social media, or like not that it's not a nice house, it is, but it's, it's not, it's not a gigantic like dream mansion either. Right. So but I'm so proud of myself actually, because I made the decision to go with the less costly one that is actually a better investment for me right now. I don't have to use a large chunk of my personal capital, so I'm proud of myself for doing that. But it took me some like real self-reflection. I'm like, is the bigger dream house, is it for me or is it for others? And I was honest with myself, and I'm like, maybe it's a little bit for me, but it's more about others. Like I'm okay with it's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath. Like it's in a nice area. It's in St. Pete. It's in a really nice neighborhood. I'm like, I think that's more than plenty for me. And it sounds crazy, but it was a big ego battle in my head for that. And
a lot of people are going through that.
Yeah. Well,
I think you made the right choice.
Thanks, man. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up there. I'm gonna put all your contact info in the show notes and everything like that.
Thank you.
But super grateful for your time today, and I definitely want to connect after the show and talk about. I'm glad we did this show just for that at a minimum. Is just I think there's some opportunity there, and I think you're right. I think we can generate some good deal flow.
Yeah. Well, we can talk before TNC, but we can definitely talk at TNC. But TNC is going to be a little crazy. Or we can talk after TNC whenever you're ready. Yeah, whenever you're ready, buddy. But I think you're sitting on a lot of deals. And even if the people said yes, you'd be like, uh-oh, now what? Right? And most people would want to spend money to acquire the business. And I'm telling you, it doesn't have to happen. So if you guys want to do that, we can talk about what that looks like, and I'd be happy to help.
Awesome, man. Grateful for your time.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for